Thousands march across Canada in support of the Arabs in Gaza. This is the Great White North Report.
I'm in love with the system. Never going home. I'm in love.
So over the weekend, there were, again, huge, massive rallies in support of the Arabs of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Now, fine if you want to protest. That's your freedom of expression. No big deal with that. Though, I think they're protesting the wrong thing. They're protesting against the Israeli airstrikes. What do you think Israel was supposed to do when Hamas crossed the border in a massive raid, killed more than 1,500 people, and took over 200 hostages? They killed indiscriminately, with no warning, unlike Israel, who does actually warn you to get out of the way. What do you expect Israel was supposed to do? Remember, the United States went to war with Japan over a lot less from Pearl Harbor. Think about it. So 1,000 march outside US Consulate in Toronto in support of the Arabs. There is no Palestinian state. That's something that wasn't embraced until the 1960s. Before that, the Arabs consider themselves, in that region, just consider themselves as either being part of Egypt, Syria, or Jordan, not as their own free, independent country. And basically, Hamas is winning the propaganda war. I'd be more okay with these protests if they said, free Gaza from Hamas. Get rid of Hamas. Down with Hamas. Those things I would be more sympathetic with these people. Because at the end of the day, this is all about Hamas. Hamas started this, so they're to blame. Israel had Kasi Bella, which means they had a clear act of war against them. They have the right to defend themselves and the right to do so. They've been trying to tell civilians to get out of the way, but the problem is Hamas hides within the civilian population. They hide underground. They're safe in their little bunkers while letting their people get killed. They don't care. The human shields are great for propaganda purposes. And these idiots in this picture don't seem to realize that. How many Arabs from that region did we take in? Seems like there's a hell of a lot of them. But no, it's Arabs from all over the Arab world that protest. And then we got some left-wing nuts out here who don't know anything. If Hamas had not made their major raid across the border, Israel would not have conducted airstrikes, not on the level we have not seen since the 1973 Yom Kippur War. Hamas is getting a taste of what war is really like, and Israel is no longer fighting with two hands behind its back. Hamas is scared, and the only way is to sway public opinion abroad to their side. A ceasefire only works in Hamas's favor, because then Hamas will stay in power. The destruction of Hamas would be a great thing, but of course something else just as ugly could rear its head. Now, of course, reporters love to give you death tolls, and you got to take these numbers with a grain of salt because they're talking about 9,400 people according to the Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza. Hamas-run. You might as well listen to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un about his golf game. Then realize that. Not saying people haven't been killed in the Israeli airstrikes, because they can't help it. They've warned people to get out of the way. And Hamas will hide behind the civilians, among the civilian population. Is this a new thing? No. Just read Sun Tzu, The Art of War. It tells you the exact same thing to do. Hide among the civilian population. In the Korean War, U.S. soldiers were accused of creating a massacre because there were North Koreans within a refugee column that was fleeing from the North Koreans. There were North Koreans among them, and they were shooting U.S. troops. So the U.S. troops opened fire and killed a lot of innocent people. It happens. The Israelis are warning people to get the hell out of the way. Egypt has closed their border, or they're letting only a trickle go through. Israel allows thousands of Arabs from the Gaza Strip to work in Israel. Every day they have to go through the checkpoints. But among those Arabs coming out, many of them gave information to Hamas of where things are. That's why Hamas knew where to attack when they did. They had detailed information from people. The people in the Gaza Strip celebrated when hostages were paraded in front of them. Yeah, it's all fun and games until it's them. So again, I am not for the Arab demonstrations against Israel or against any ceasefire. Remember, the war could end today if Hamas surrenders. Pure and simple. That's the simplest form. Hamas surrenders, the war is over. And if the people of the Gaza Strip really want some kind of peace, They have to build a respectable government, and then Israel will actually help you out. Now, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency says 72 of its staff members. Well, that's the risk you run of being in a war zone. Hamas didn't exactly warn the UN that it was going to do it. Hamas didn't tell its own people that they were going to do this. What did Hamas think? That they were just going to be able to do this and Israel would just make a small, major raids? Or why did they take hostages? Because they want prisoner exchanges. No. They want to negotiate a prisoner exchange, not a peace exchange. Remember, since 1936, the Arabs have rejected every peace offer made to them. And they could have lived with a 36th deal that would have seen a much smaller Israel than what we have even in the 48 partition. That didn't have a lot of natural resources of its own. It was just a rump state in the north. They could have lived with it. They refused to. So remember, it's the Arab leaders who have led their people down this path. They've rejected every offer. Yasser Arafat was offered everything he wanted, but he walked away because he knew that the minute he walked out of the plane and announced the peace treaty, someone would have killed him. Someone would have killed him. So the Arabs, blame your own leaders, political and religious leaders, for this mess, because you've let them lead you by the nose. There can never be peace when one side doesn't show up. The Israelis have offered peace many times, but the Arabs have always rejected it. It's common knowledge. Yeah, so this sign here should say free Palestine. Should be get rid of Hamas, free Gaza. Free Gaza by getting rid of Hamas. Then I'd be more sympathetic to them. The Israelis aren't going to keep Gaza. They don't want it. They're not going to conquer it. They're going to get rid of Hamas and they're going to leave. So I have no sympathy for these people. Now, they did a rally on Parliament Hill and there was the presence of a swastika. Of course, they're not going to show it here at a Parliament Hill rally. But of course, they're talking about the Jews being Zionism equals Nazism. No one never did. Should a man holding a sign portraying the Nazi symbol next to the flag of Israel with the text Zionism equals Nazism, forgetting the historical realism of the day. But it just shows you the ignorance of these people. Forgetting the fact that the Arabs themselves mass migrated to the region shortly after World War I. After World War I, there was not a lot of people living in that region. And the majority of them lived in the city of Jerusalem. And that's rich that they would say that the Jews equals the Nazis. Zionism equals Nazism. Zionism is dead, actually. Zionism no longer exists as an organization. They're not looking to have Jews who live abroad coming back to Israel. There's not a mass migration back to Israel. That was something from the 19th century into the 20th century. And most of the Jews that immigrated to Israel in the 20th century actually came from Muslim countries after they were kicked out in 1948. From 1948 to 1972, I'd say about 30 to 40% of today's Jews come from the Muslim country. They were refugees. But going back to the swastika thing, they're not going to show it in this picture, obviously. At least I don't think so. No, CBC doesn't have the courage to do it. What I find interesting is the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem meets Hitler in Berlin in 1941. The Arab leader of Jerusalem, the Grand Mufti, was the guy who helped Hitler and his little band of Nazis develop the final solution. People forget that the Arabs, many Arabs supported Hitler during World War II. So to find parallels between Zionism and Nazism, more like Arabs and Nazism. The Arab world is still very much anti-Jewish, and their slogan "From the river to the sea" means the extermination of Jews in the region. Now they want the U.S. to do something about it. No, if I was the U.S., stay out of it. Just make sure no one else gets into it. It is between Hamas and Israel. That's what people like this need to understand. It's not against the Arabs of Gaza itself, it's against their leadership. Take out Hamas, and it's over. I've even seen a couple of photos with communist flags mixed them among the Arab flags here. Even the LGBTQ, not knowing that in Islamic law, members of the LGBTQ would be executed or given harsh prison terms. So all of the lefties have joined this cause, despite the fact that the Arabs are actually far right in terms of the political spectrum. So that's an interesting little thing. As a Canadian, I do not support the Arabs of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, and not many people I do know do support them. And I work in a very varied place. Most of us find that the Arabs have become professional victims and seem to relish the attention that's being given upon them. We all know, because most of us are really educated, or do some reading, unlike some of these people, that the Arabs have been offered peace many times and have refused. But this is going to go on and on and on until Hamas is finally crushed or driven far underground. And hopefully the Arabs get their head of their ass and actually elect some responsible leaders who care for the people, rather than care for what could have been had they accepted long ago. Anyway, Canadians out there, let me know what you guys think about these rallies. Leave comments in the comment section. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Until next time, this has been the Great White North Report.
I'm in love with the